Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 26th episode of Human Mode Conversation. I'm Nogol Madani, the founder of Glee Factor and also the host of this podcast. And today I have a dear guest, Dimitra Georgakis, who's the Chief Client Officer at Dentsu Creative. Thank you so much, Dimitra, for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so Dimitra, can you just introduce yourself a bit, maybe for a minute or two?
Yeah, definitely, with pleasure. So, Dimitra is my first name. Some know me by the name of Demi. I am a proud Montrealer, although I haven't lived here most of my life. I did live abroad for a little while. I'm very proud of that experience. And I am the Chief Client Officer at Dentsu Creative for our Canadian business, and I'm also responsible for our Montreal practice. I'm a proud mom of two little boys, 4.5, they'd like to tell you, and 7.5. Let's not forget those half years, they're critical. They're all in a race in a sprint rather, to grow up. And yeah, proud mom, wife, friend, all the things. So,
An amazing
and
leader that you want to
an
keep
amazing
on and
leader.
learn
Well,
more.
thank you for the accolade. I hope we definitely try to show up for each other. Yeah.
So awesome. Dimitra, when we had a conversation, I told you why I want to have these, podcasts and different exchanges with leaders. The idea is that, I see that younger leaders, they're really going through some rough time. It's an unprecedented times, a lot of change, AI. I need to perform and transform at the same time. I don't know how to lead change. I want to lead differently. I don't know what's my leadership identity. These are the things that I'm hearing all the time from younger leaders. So for me, it's important that to first of all expose them to different kinds of leadership, the leadership that I find quite inspiring and relevant for the future of work. But I also, through your story and your journey, I hope that we can bring some insights and some ideas to them to build their own, identity and capacity as a leader.
I
So
love
that
that.
is the goal, yes. So for me, I always ask my guests this first question: that what does leadership mean to you today? And
Mhm.
how did it evolve in the last, many years that you've had different leadership roles?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Listen, things changed. I think leadership today is really showing up for others in the unknown when you don't have all the answers. So when I first started taking on more leadership responsibilities, managing teams, being responsible for P&Ls, et cetera, I thought, and there was part truth to that. Being a leader was being able to provide clarity, answers, guide. And the reality, as I continue to delve into those responsibilities, what I'm realizing, at least my leadership, the way it shows up, is really in connecting the dots and really bringing the best out in people and getting people to show up with their full potential in a collective effort to achieve something, right?
I love it.
And if we're able to offer people, an experience of a lifetime where they can show up and do some of the best work of their careers, that is really what serendipity looks like, where things are changing. And although that North Star remains, I think,
Mhm.
always directionally where we're headed, where things are changing right now is that life is so volatile, business is so volatile, that you really need to lead in the unknown. So there's a lot less clarity even for leaders. So your younger leaders who are maybe anxious vis-a-vis some of the demands on them, they should know that they're not alone, right? I think whether you're a seasoned leader, granted, you can deal with uncertainty a little better, maybe because of the experience.
Yes.
Ultimately, you know that solutions abound, and you'll figure it out somehow. So that confidence comes with experience. I think that they should all, take comfort in knowing that the way forward and the leaders of tomorrow will look very, very different than the leaders of today.
Wow. I would love to hear your thoughts about that. But I want to emphasize what you said, connecting the dots, like for your leadership. And I think
Mhm.
that I constantly tell people that the time that you can have all the answers is over, and your job is more to become a facilitator, meaning holding space allowing people to bring new ideas, and you're the one do the sense making, making sense of things and connecting the dots. And I love that you mentioned that. So tell us, Dimitra, you said that the leadership of tomorrow is going to be very different than the leadership of today. How is that?
Yeah, I think again through the lens of what I would tell a younger self or incoming, leaders into the profession or into any role really, because leadership doesn't show up only in corporate situations. I think my counsel would be get comfortable today with being uncomfortable. Because that's what it's going to be. It's staying. I say keeping that equilibrium, and having vision when there is so much uncertainty. And that's going to look very different because you're going to have to contend with elements that were probably not as prevalent when I was coming up in my leadership capacity. The global instability that impacts, consumers, that impacts consumer behavior, decisions, how businesses and brands connect, the proliferation of social media and how everyone has a voice and an opinion and can be of influence on a brand, for example. I think it's making the profession a lot more dynamic. But it's also making leaders who have to make decisions because ultimately leadership is, yes, driving results through others and making uplifting people. But when you don't know what, when your KPIs change daily, and when you don't know what success looks like, because success today will look very different than what it did in the past. In the past, you would, and you still do that. You look year over year, and growth is obviously the ambition. But that looks a lot more uncertain these days. So I think a
Yes.
lot success is multifaceted. It's different, and the ingredients that typically went into like a successful path are no longer.
Yes, is there. I love that. And, I want to know for you as a seasoned leader, how are you managing these times? Like, what are some of the practices that you're
Mhm.
using to somehow say, okay, like, because I want to
Mhm.
ask this question that did you also have to build new capacities and
Mhm.
new mindset during this time, even though you had all these years of leadership
Mhm.
because of
It's
the
funny. I think for me at least, a turning point in my leadership was the pandemic.
Mhm.
Um, and the pandemic taught me something very interesting. And there's an anecdote I always share, but just to kind of ground ourselves, although nobody wants to go back to those days.
Yes.
6 years later, we don't want to talk about that. But for me, a very telling experience was when I remember I used to live in a condo at the time, and I had to furlough a lot of our people because just business had, obviously certain industries had come to a close. So we had to put people on furlough. You had to, appease people when they were facing the unknown and when you were facing the unknown. So I remember being in my bathtub, literally on a Zoom, um, putting an end to someone's livelihood, and I had my then 3-year-old outside of the bathroom, kind of like asking for me. So I remember like just being confined in a small space with a young child and having these responsibilities that were life impacting, right? So in that moment, I remember that weighed very difficult. It was very difficult on me. So what I did was I decided not to go at it alone. So I seeked coaching at that time,
Mhm.
professional coaching, which is something I've gone back to at different points in my journey as a leader. When I lacked clarity, when I needed a little reinforcement, because we too are humans. We too are impacted in the context of the pandemic. That was a difficult reality for us as well. So to answer your question, for me, it's always been kind of self-improvement journey. It's not once you ascend to a leadership position, job done. um, I said I sought coaching, and I have professional coaches that I've worked with throughout the years, but I also, a few years back when I was on my second maternity leave, decided to go get trained as a professional coach as well. So then I can be
Mhm.
able to leverage some of those tactics that were so useful to me in my day to day leadership. So for me, it's always been getting that reinforcement, and it comes in different forms. Sometimes it's listening to your podcasts, listening to other podcasts on leadership, reading books, exchanging with like-minded individuals who face similar challenges. It's just, you don't have to go at it alone.
Mhm.
And it's funny because a mentor of mine, and he was right to a certain extent, told me a long time ago, about 15 plus years ago. He said, it's lonely at the top. And I remember those words stayed with me. And there are moments where you feel lonely, in the sense that, you're in a leadership position for a reason. You have to make some difficult decisions. You have to show up when some days it's hard on you. So I remember thinking, okay, it is lonely at the top, but you don't have to go at it alone.
Mhm. I
And that
totally
would be
agree
my
with you.
recommendation. Create a community, and it's easy these days, right? You can converse in platforms like this. You can join more formal environments, like an MBA of sorts. Like, just go fill your cup with the tools needed in the day to
Yes.
day.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dimitra, because I think that so many young people think that we're just going to hit a moment and that we've figured it all. But I'm so happy that you're sharing this idea that it's a work in progress and it's a continuous learning leadership. And to your point, different realities need different toolkits and different
Mhm.
capacities. Like one is pandemic, one is AI, one is a. So, like, I really think that this is a very nice invitation that we keep that curiosity and constantly search to improve ourselves, build our capacity either through, professional training or through community or like
Mm.
consuming content. Like, I think this is extremely key that people understand that it's not just a one-time thing, that you're going to do
Mhm.
this like leadership training in the workplace, or I've done this and I'm done. Like, there's no such a
Mhm.
thing as done. Like, it's just a continuous one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's funny because sometimes us too, like, there's a lot of demands on us, especially within a big corporation. And I'm thankful, actually, to, like, our HR teams, because they'll force us into these, like, situations, and we all begrudgingly, it's like, okay, great, we have to do this offsite now. And then, it's like there's pressing matters at hand. But
Yes.
it's so critical to press pause on the day to day, on that hamster wheel, and resource and ask all the right questions and connect in community and learn and grow, so then you can just come back and
Mhm.
tackle things with a lot more clarity.
But
So
Dimitra,
yeah, that's been a critical ingredient to I think the way I show up.
but that's actually, Dimitra, I have a follow-up question to that because I see that to your point that you're saying, like, people are constantly super busy and the systems are just also too busy that even though individuals sometimes want to take like a professional development course or like training of any sorts, they're not given the chance because they need to perform. Like, how can they navigate that? That, you know what, I know I need to perform, but if I take this little bit of time and still doing my work, I'm going to come back stronger with better
Mhm.
capacities. But sometimes that is not necessarily the reality of many teams. Like, how would
Well, I
you
think,
approach
yeah,
that?
you need to value it. Like, I'm lucky enough where I've grown in an organization, because I've been with Dentsu for close to 15 years right now, and we have a strong learning and development agenda. That's one of our core values. But I think the most fundamental value, if fundamental place, if that's a value for you, then you make time for what's important for you.
Got
And
it.
it's funny because lack of time, like, I agree, time is the one currency we're all chasing, more time. And it's funny, again, it was a professional coach that I worked with. He said, I noticed you use lack of time as an excuse a lot. You need to make time for things that matter to you.
Interesting.
And that is also something that I often come back to, because if you value growth, for yourself, for your teams, then you will prioritize it. Like, right now, I have one of my key VPs that I've sent on a leadership program to Tokyo. And it's funny because I did the same leadership program about a year ago in Tokyo, which is where our mothership is. And she was, like, in the midst of, like, a big deliverable, And she came to me and she said, listen, I appreciate that you put me up for this, but if you want to give the opportunity to someone else because I need to deliver this. And then I said, is this something that is important to you and that you think has a value? She said, yes. And I said, okay, so we will find ways to create space so you can be there. And she's been able to partake. She's been there for a week. And things didn't crumble. We didn't miss a beat.
Yes.
We just, we just showed up for her as a team. And this is where I think, my leadership and her leadership to be able to ensure that people below had her trust to take on what
Yes.
typically, would have been on, her docket. Trust that the people below will step in for you to be able to experience something as well. That will be of value to the full team when you get back. So that was kind of
Yes. How
um,
you did it.
an example,
Yes.
a very recent example of how we made space for someone to prioritize self learning.
I love
Yeah.
that. And thank you so much, Dimitra, for sharing that because I hope other senior leaders are listening so that they
Mm.
can follow your lead. Because, again, not always the case for many, systems. So I want to invite you to go back to early days.
Okay.
Okay. So, what was that moment that you thought that I'm a leader? Like, when was that?
God.
Did you have a
I
title?
don't think I don't think there was ever. Listen, I think for some people, it's part of. I don't know. There's an internal drive somehow, right? That comes early. So I always knew, label it ambition. I always knew there was an ambition. And again, leadership is different than ambition because you can go at your ambition on your own. Leadership, takes a team. I think one example. So I came in Dentsu currently through an acquisition. So I was part of an independent Quebec, crown jewel, actually, because it was a legendary agency that was acquired by this global network. And I came in at the early days of that acquisition.
Mhm.
And which was such a gift because I learned so much during that period. And what I learned first and foremost was that change is difficult for people, right? So we had to learn new systems, integrate into a new culture, and people's reflex at that time was total chaos, right? Um, a lot of people left because they couldn't identify with what we were turning into, and it was just pure chaos. As one culture, I would say, one company culture which had been successful for 20 plus years was now dimming slowly as we integrated into something new. So, in that period of chaos, because it was truly chaos with people leaving, people pushing back to the new culture that was coming into place. We're in a client service business as well. So, change on the client's end, and some clients didn't like it, losing clients as a result of it, et cetera. That was where I think I started stepping in as a leader, um, or at least in a more pronounced fashion. And it's funny because my instant reflex, maybe at that time, was also to jump ship.
Mhm.
And I recall my now husband at the time, he wasn't my husband, he said to me, you can leave and go somewhere else where things, appear to be, a steadier
Stable.
ship,
Yes.
stable, or you can stay here and be part, drive the change that you want to see and be part of that change and rewrite the script and be part of, and truthfully, that's what I did, right?
Wow.
So I thought that was very good counsel because, the grass always seems greener. And yes, you can go be part of somebody else's success, but you can also, sit back, weather the storm, lean into your leadership and define the future. So I think that's what I did in that
And did
moment.
you have a official title as a leader, or it was more the role that you're taking before getting the title?
It's funny. I always, and I still believe that, and that's something I would tell, the incomers into the business. I'd say, work the job that you want, not the job that you have.
Yes.
But I have to say the titles closely followed. Like
God.
titles closely followed, and the runway closely followed. And I think also when people notice that you're responsible, you're insightful, that you've got, the traits of a leader, and that you're looking out for the collective best interest and the interest of the business, they give you runway, even if the title hasn't caught up. Eventually, it does, and you should force the hand so you are recognized adequately for your contribution. But even if you're not there quite yet, they'll give you the runway.
That's awesome. And that's a great advice because I totally agree with you that you do the job, you build your case, you show your, like your capacity. And I think that's exactly like that idea of leadership, that it doesn't mean that I need to have the title. I
Mm.
will do the job and that follows because exactly to your point, the collective success for you was more important than just having the title of leader.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I just want to know, Dimitra, what was one of those challenging moments in those early days of you as a leader, as an official leader? What was it? Like, what was the moment that you thought, oh my goodness, this is so difficult?
God, there was a lot. Um, I think for me, because again, one of my superpowers is connecting the dots. So
Hmm.
I see the solution quickly. So a lot of times I wanted to just solve it. And again, because I like things to move and progress, and speed is important in our business as well, reaction time and whatnot. A lot of times I just wanted to solve all the things.
Got it.
Um, and I think seeing that, or being told, actually, because it was told to me from at that time, a boss and mentor, he said, it's not for you to solve anymore. So
Love it.
that reframe was difficult. It was difficult because I'm a solver, I'm a fixer. That's what I do, right? And that's how I had defined my value and my worth as
Hmm.
well for a very long time. So then, kind of recognizing that, okay, I'm going to have to go at this differently. I see the solution, and also learning that maybe my solution wasn't the only way.
Yes, yes, yes.
So when you step back and you allow others to solve, um, then recognizing, oh, there was a different path. So I think there's been a lot of those humbling moments along the way where I've been like, oh, okay, yeah, there you go, uh,
And
there you go.
one of those very, like you just hit the like, because this is exactly the challenge that we see a lot with younger leaders is that they are high performers. To your point, they are solvers. So moving, and that's probably how they go up. So moving from this individual contributor, the hero in the room, to now an enabler, listening to others, that's quite challenging for many people. And I was
Mm,
talking to another leader last week and said that there is this tension that can I keep my voice and giving others
mm,
voice. So how did you what were some of the practices that helped you move to a
mm,
more leader, enabler, facilitator rather than just be this high performer in and out?
mm. There's a science to it, and that's what I did. So again, going back to that second maternity leave, because raising a little human wasn't challenging enough, I went and got a coaching certificate, and as part of that curriculum, you learn like how to ask the right questions, right? How to reframe, how to bring people in the world of possible, because a lot of times the job is to get people to put aside what we call like their limiting beliefs, and be able to envision, what if this was the outcome, what if we can get there faster. So I had to learn, and I still have like prompts on my desk is a mess. I won't show you, but I still have, because it's something that you need to cultivate through time.
Yes.
So but there are proven methods that really allow you to kind of step out of yourself, um, and lead others. So that's where I've gone more the toolkit route, right? Giving myself the right toolkit
Yes.
to be able to show up as a leader, hold space for people to come in and do their best work. And ultimately, you know, in a very selfish way, because I know a lot of and maybe at some point in my journey, I thought this too. Well, then, am I even necessary if they're doing it without me?
Yes.
You know, everybody's biggest concern, especially, in a volatile market is, you don't want to be obsolete or, but ultimately for me, it's if I have thriving teams, and
Exactly.
by thriving, low attrition, if we're delivering results, then that's a reflection on me as well, right? If we're growing the business, if we're winning, like,
You don't
that
need
is
to be
all
the
a
one.
reflection of my leadership. But again, it's not, I don't have to be in the front of every room.
Yes. One of our guests mentioned that I stopped proving myself and trying to impress everyone. And I tried to be useful. And sometimes that usefulness showed up in me listening, asking better questions, stepping back, giving room. But I mean, I totally understand, but it's a big mindset shift that I can easily understand that it could be challenging for people like getting into into that role. How did you let go of that control?
Mhm.
Like what did you have to unlearn or let go of and say, you know what, this is the new
Mhm.
identity, and this is where I can serve the
You
world.
know what? I think it's really learning to trust. Um, and and when I realized as well, because a lot of it, again, to your point, is control, right? It's not necessarily just the ego driving, but it is the need to control the outcome. So when you trust that you have the right people, so when I built a team, and I can say hand on heart today, I have one of the strongest teams I've ever had, where they are so strong, and that I trust that the work will get done, and that it'll give the result that we need, so we can all, as a collective, you know, shine. Then I think the job is done. And getting to a point of trust takes time. Trust is something that you cultivate. So it's like having the longevity with people, and that's what I think um, a long career in the same place has given me as well. So I've been able to build relationships, and we've all been on a learning journey together. And I've been able to see how people have stepped in, stepped up, have taken the feedback, et cetera. So I think sometimes you just need the time to get there. And that's why, and it's funny because sometimes ambition and time don't, aren't on the same trajectory. So when I see younger leaders and I recognize, and I like the ambition that I see in them, a lot of times what I tell them, and I think something that I learned on my journey, was patience pays off.
I know.
Like, be patient. And again, don't be, I'm not saying, don't dim your ambition, but they can both, you have to learn how to work with both, right?
Yes.
There's a time to ask, and there's a time to just to sit back, learn, prove, build, and then you can lean in and ask as well.
Awesome. I love it. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that all the guests that we had brought that up, because I think this is something that we all seeing, that to your point, there is an ambition, but sometimes combined with lack of patience. Like we
Mm,
want to get things fast. So I love like that you are also sharing this idea that we need patience, we need grace, we have to give it some time, we have to build those relationships.
mm,
So, like one thing, Dimitra, that like everyone's talking about these days is that something's happening, and that is this idea that we need to pivot, we need to reinvent ourselves, we need to upskill, reskill.
mm.
Like, what was the moment that you in your career had to pivot, had to change directions, and how did you do that?
Well, like early, and it's funny, the pivots, everything is cyclical too. Like I came in, so I came out of marketing, and first I started in PR.
Hmm.
And I remember PR back in the day when it was just like mainly like media relations, press relations, without the whole influencer sphere, because
Yes.
that wasn't a thing. And I remember there was something that, again, I couldn't control in the sense of the results, because a lot of it was earned, and earned, you couldn't. And I remember the conversations with clients, it was difficult because, they pay X, they expect Y, but you couldn't quite get there sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because it was, an earned result, earned coverage, media coverage at the time. So I remember that didn't feel good to me because I didn't want to feel like I was not able to control the outcome for my clients. So I literally pivoted into advertising,
Mm-hmm.
because there was an paid, you pay for play there. Granted, the landscape has changed and worlds have collapsed, but 20 years ago, I think I pivoted early. And it's funny because my PR has made me stronger in advertising, but that's a whole different conference. Because I think it gave me some great foundations as a storyteller, which are
Mm-hmm.
critical on all sides of the business. But a more recent example, well, with AI, right? You have to pivot, and it's still a learning journey for me. I think, as most people, there's the early adopters, and there's people who are more inclined to leverage technology. A lot of what I do is people based, people first. So my teams are using AI on the product itself, but I still need to show up, and I can't, outsource that to an agent. But I am learning how to embrace it,
Mm-hmm.
and to supercharge my own capability through it. I haven't quite, cracked it. So if anybody has any ideas, please let me know. But yeah, I think the pivot is critical, for early days when I decided to branch out literally in another area of marketing, to right now where my day to day is being influenced by AI and how we
By
show up.
technology. And
Yeah.
I think it's extremely important because you mentioned something that what you had previously as a storytelling really helped you in advertising. And I think this is something that so many of us miss when we are reskilling, upskilling, pivoting. I went through that, I'm coming from engineering and then I became an entrepreneur in the culture field and leadership and all of that. And for the longest time, I couldn't see the transferable skills and I
Mhm.
couldn't leverage. And I think that this is extremely key that you understand what you're good at, what are some of those strengths, and how that could come into that new reality.
That's exactly it. I think you build from a place of strength. You can build from a place where of interest, and maybe you're not that good at it. I think it's just going to take you longer.
Exactly.
But if you're building, and there's proven science from a place of strength, I think you get somewhere faster. And that's where I'm trying to understand now how, we know the use cases for AI in areas like production, content creation, fantastic. For some domains, it's a lot more obvious, tangible, and real, and happening now. Um, in the areas of leadership, I'm still trying to see how that will impact
Yeah.
and pivot me in a new direction.
And this is a great segue, I think, for the follow up question that as we're talking about AI, future of work, what do you think, what would be some of those, extremely important traits of leaders for the future? Like definitely if I see like literacy of technology, around technology and AI, but what else do you think that it's going to become more important in the years ahead?
Um, it's funny. I actually think there will be the proliferation in AI in several industries, and will redefine, and probably eliminate a lot of roles. When it comes to leadership, and I don't know. I don't know what I don't know at this point either. I don't know how much it will, because
Mm,
ultimately it's human first, right? Um, will it eliminate the need for a one-on-one with a team member? No, I still get a lot. Those one-on-ones that I have in calendar with my direct reports are so valuable. Will I replace those? No. So a lot of what you do at a leadership level is human. So I still, I don't know. I don't know how much of the leadership, there have been proven cases. I'll give you an example, a concrete example. We have to do, annual reviews
yeah.
of our people. We have to do 360s where you comment on peers, etc. So it's easy to pull in, some of AI, whether you're using Copilot or whatever LLM you're using, to help you rewrite those.
Yes.
To track history, what were the person's goals, what were some of their achievements, and put it um, in the system, and it can help you like shortcut that. But of course, before I put my stamp on it, I'm going to reread it. I'm going to put my own flair in it. I'm going to put my, so um, yeah, I think I haven't quite figured that one out yet.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you're saying. Like, even World Economic Forum, like it like published something for 2030, and the core skills is exactly around judgment, like analyzing AI generated content or AI generated work, how you influence, how we collaborate, what is our, creative thinking capacity. Like, I
Mhm.
totally agree with you that these human capacities will continue to actually become more important. And one of our guests challenged me because I mentioned to her that, like, the soft skills that we used to call them soft because they're feminine and not important and whatever,
Mhm.
like, they're now becoming extremely important, but in so many systems it's still quite, we need the technical. So
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
younger leaders listening to this can somehow embrace the importance, if they're working in systems that it's still pushing on technical skills. This is not important. You don't want to learn this. Like, we have to deliver result. Like, how can we build that equilibrium, and balance of technical and human skills?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's again understanding, at least for me, the best examples of leadership. Um, to go back to your analogy, they come from the beautiful mastery of those soft skills, and they don't have to be soft. Some of the best leaders I've seen are exceptional networkers.
Yes.
They're exceptional, at the politics, and everyone's gonna, grimace at the word politics, but the reality is, most organizations there are corporate politics, so you need to
Yes.
understand. And again, it doesn't have to be, evil, and it doesn't have to be negative, but you need to understand the inner workings of an organizational culture. All of that uh, is human,
Yes. Exactly.
human instinct, right? In a different universe, like my husband works in the finance industry, in trading. Yes, they've been teaching models how to do a big portion, but you can't replicate the instinct and the experience of a trader who's been doing this for 30 years and who
Mhm.
could give color to a certain, like, you just can't do that yet. I don't know what will happen one day.
Yes.
But same when I'm at the table, with a new client in a negotiation. Yes, my growth team has used all these tools to get me information and to get me briefed on who's at the other end of the table, what I need to know about them. But ultimately, in the room, my instinct is
Yes.
going to drive that conversation in huge part, right? So it
Exactly.
does help in the preparation. So I think they need to appreciate the role of technology. And again, AI is exploding, but at least in my world, and I'm sure, in your past world, technology has always been part of certain work streams.
Exactly.
It's just now the technology has become widely available to the masses, right? That's, I think, the key shift. The fact that it's no longer, part of your data and tech stack, but that it's available to all.
Yes.
So I think they just need to be curious. They need to be curious about all of it.
I totally agree with you. Curiosity is that key. Dimitra, you had said that you're running, you're managing partner for the managing director for the Quebec, firm, and you're also like a global chief client officer. So you're working with a lot of young leaders. What are some of the challenges that you're hearing from them? They're sharing with you, or you're observing? Like, what are some of the things that you keep seeing in patterns and in themes?
Mhm. This is not going to be kind, but it's not intended to be provocative in any way. But I think a lot of the incomers um, have been shielded from discomfort.
Yes, got it.
Um, and again, I go back to you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I just worry that we haven't trained them to be resilient.
Yeah, got it.
Um, so, and again, a lot of it comes with experience. But I don't know. I think it's just different times as well, right? In a world where everything is, at a click of a button, ease. Like we're promoting ease. You get your food delivered within minutes. You go on Amazon and you have a package delivered tomorrow through Prime. So there's all these enablers. But when you're dealing with people, it's complex, right? So I see their resilience. They tend to take things a lot more personally. And it's lovely because it speaks to, I think we have a generation of empaths,
Yes.
and that's fantastic coming up. And they do have an appreciation for an empathetic type of leadership. But I also see like a lot of them take these things really personally.
Yes.
I had someone recently come to me with something, and then I said, well, hold on. You're not meant to be your direct reports therapist. That's not the role here. You can still be empathetic and appreciate that we all show up with like our own personal baggage to work and hold space for people to come to step into work, and not have to put a shield on. But to a certain point, there's a job to be done, and that's not your job. Like if they do need, and that's why we have again our HR team. We have, if they need if they need therapy, or if there's other tools. It's not for the manager to be all of it.
I agree with you. I agree with you because I hear as well that, because like I teach a lot about psychological safety and creating that environment. And I sometimes see that there is a panic in people because they think that then this becomes a therapy session. I'll say that no,
Mhm.
but this is really, to your point, that environment that people can speak up, can share, but it has to be that healthy boundaries around what you're accountable for and what you're, like responsible for and what you can do within your like scope of work. So like I think that this is a great thing because this is also another point that I'm hearing from younger people, like taking things personally, but also taking this pressure that on the manager, the coach, the friend, the
Mhm.
therapist is putting a lot of pressure on
And
young.
they're ill equipped to take on those roles. Most of us are, right?
Yes,
There's subject matter experts for a
yes,
reason, right?
exactly. Yes,
So again, you can connect with someone, you can be compassionate, you can meet them where they're at,
yes,
but beyond that, there is still a job to be done, and a lot of times that's what and especially in this macroeconomic political climate, we have a lot of employees from Iran, or just diverse workforce, uh, dealing with some really difficult family realities right now,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Yeah,
War torn areas coming from, and it's obviously you want to appreciate that what they're living through is difficult, but again. You don't it can't only be the manager offering that support.
yes,
So,
totally
like, we
agree.
have listening circles that are guided by our HR team and people that are a lot more qualified to give and hold people and give people space for that level of exchange. And again, it doesn't have to all rest on the manager. So it's just appreciating, and I think they need to learn how to put boundaries,
Yes,
um, how to um, how to protect themselves to a certain extent as well, because they can't take it all on. Um, and it's funny, contrary to when I came into the business. So my unlearning was when I came in, I had my personal life and my professional life.
hmm,
And I was two different people, not two different people, but like I would keep my personal life outside. And very quickly I learned that was doing me a disservice. Like if I showed up authentically, yes, I can speak about my kids and it's not going to diminish my value
Dimitra,
as
this
a
is what
leader.
we were growing up with. We were constantly, like, I think that we're probably similar in age. And when we joined the workforce, it was constantly this idea that you leave your personal life at the door. I don't want to hear about it. Like, I went through
Correct.
many different, like, life-changing events from, like, terminal diseases to loss of loved ones to birth to all that things. And I constantly thought that this is something personal, and then you show up at a different person. So I think
Mm.
that, to your point, like this is a different, like this is the extreme other side of like,
Mm,
like this realities. And I think that at some point we have to find something in the middle that is still
correct.
human, but at the same time feasible without
Mm,
burning out our
correct.
manager.
Please, correct. Correct. Without burning out the manager and also keeping a certain level of, I think what our generation was good at, um, there was a certain, not professionalism, but yeah, it allowed ourselves, or that framing or that expectation as well. It kind of elevated the workforce.
Yes,
And I do think that's still required, especially, and again, biased because I'm in a client servicing environment,
for
right?
sure.
So you need a bit of that formality.
Yes,
So I think the incoming managers, because it's all things, and again, we've taught them that they need to be emotionally and psychologically safe in the workplace, and you should be able to bring your whole self to work, etc. Sometimes I'm noticing they're lacking some of that formality that is critical
yes,
in our business, at
yes,
least,
yes.
when you're in a client facing role.
Got it. So, I mean, Dimitra, I can just talk to you for another, like a few hours. This is super exciting, but like, I have a final question from you. So many young leaders are listening, and they will listen later on when we post this on YouTube. I would like to hear your final words for them, like those who want to lead differently, they don't want to burn out. They're seeing systems somehow not working, so they know that things have to change, but they don't necessarily have the right tools or mindset. Like, what would you leave them with? What are your final words for them? And that maybe you would have told your younger self as well.
Mm-mm-mm. You've got what it takes to get there. Like, you can bring the change that you want. You can be the leader that you want. Again, I don't want to be redundant, but you don't have to go at it alone. Everything as is at your disposal internally, and if you do the work internally, you'll be able to lead from a place of authenticity. And I think that authentic leadership is one of the strongest forms of leadership, if you ask me. So I think it's like, know thyself, continue to work on thyself, give yourself permission to try things, to learn, to grow, and dream. And there's no lack of need. We need leadership is needed in all aspects of business, in all aspects of politics.
Yes.
So um, lean in would be my words, and I
Love
think
it.
those were Cheryl's words. But yeah, I would leave them with that.
I love it.
Yeah, just do put in the work. Hard work has always been critical to fantastic leadership, the starting point, the be all and end all. So put in the work yourselves, show up for others, and you can have a lot of fun. You can have a fantastic career that way.
I love it. And I'm so happy that you brought the fun as well, because I think that's the other thing, that sometimes we put so much pressure that it becomes like so stressful. But I think a good leadership is really like building a dynamic that it's pleasant to work with, to co-create, to perform in. Like, it's really, you're delivering results, but how you do it is definitely through sweat and hard work, but also enjoyable still and meaningful.
Yeah, there will be hard days, but ultimately, I can hand on heart say, at least at this point in my career, I do love what I do. I love a lot of things, uh, but when I show up at work and I'm here for people, and I'm on a plane going to meet my teams or meet clients, I'm having so much fun. I'm loving all of it. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Love this.
Well,
Thank you so much, Dimitra. Like, let's
thank you.
just,
Love talking to you as well. This was a lot of fun. I hope people
yes,
enjoy it.
thank you so much for everyone listening. As I mentioned, the LinkedIn Live will be there, and YouTube is going to be uploaded next week. And definitely, Dimitra, if people want to learn more about your work, I think they can find you on LinkedIn.
They're welcome
And
to reach out. Always
uh,
available.
Awesome, perfect. So we're gonna take a week off, like a pause next week, and then we're gonna come back on June 19th with our 27th episode. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thanks again, Dimitra, for being with us.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.